In July 2022, on a Saturday that felt hotter than any day that summer, I decided to take my 8-year-old son, Ethan, to the North Carolina State Fairgrounds in Raleigh. A traveling carnival had set up on the big gravel lot next to Carter Finley Stadium. Ethan had been asking to go ever since he saw the bright, colorful rides when we drove past on Interstate 40 the week before. My wife was on a long 12-hour shift at the hospital, so it turned into a father and son day. I wanted it to be simple and fun, especially after 2 hard years of the pandemic. I also wanted Ethan to remember that I kept my promises. We parked around 10 in the morning. Even that early, the sun was strong, and the air smelled like funnel cake and fuel from the generators. Ethan jumped out in his red Braves cap and cargo shorts, hopping over the faded white lines in the lot. I locked the car, put the keys deep into my pocket, and made sure to remember we were parked in row B12 because I knew it would be hard to find later. Ethan grabbed my hand as we walked toward the ticket booth. The hot pavement looked like it was rippling. We started with the Ferris wheel so we could get a view of everything. From the top, the trees stretched out green all around, and Ethan kept pointing at different things, deciding what to do next. Down below, crowds were starting to gather around the games. When we got off the Ferris wheel, Ethan pulled me toward the basketball game, thinking he could win the giant panda hanging above. I paid the man, and Ethan tried, but the ball bounced off the rim both times. We didn't win. Ethan acted like it was no big deal, but I noticed he kept looking back at the panda. I told him we'd try again later. By 11 o'clock, the midway was packed. Families, teens, and older folks moved close together. Some still wore masks, most didn't. Music from loudspeakers mixed with the sound of rides and people yelling, "Step right up!" I bought Ethan cotton candy, which turned his lips blue. He loaded a corn dog with way too much ketchup, but he was happy and kept saying thank you. I felt like the best dad in the world. We spent about an hour in the kids section called Kittyland, and I kept watch to make sure the bigger kids didn't bump into Ethan. I made myself stop checking work emails. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun was straight overhead, and I suggested we go sit in the shade by the fountain to have cold drinks. Ethan agreed but wanted one more ride first, the mini roller coaster shaped like a dragon. The line snaked under red flags. We got in line, and Ethan kept talking about how brave he'd be when the dragon dipped down. About 15 minutes passed slowly. The ride operator had trouble getting a tall kid buckled in, so the line stopped. Sweat ran down my back. Ethan's chatting slowed, and he started getting restless. I pulled out my phone to check the time and see how long until the 2 o'clock magic show Ethan wanted to see. When my screen lit up, a warning popped up. Low battery, just 10% left. I sighed, realizing I forgot to charge it the night before. I checked the time. It was 1:37. That glance took about 3 seconds, but that was all it took. When I looked up, Ethan was gone. At first, I thought maybe he bent down to tie his shoe or step behind me. I turned quickly, looking all around. The line in front of the ride was moving again, but no Ethan. My stomach dropped. I called out his name, but my voice came out soft, lost in the loud carnival noise. I moved forward to the ride gate and asked a nearby mom if she saw a little boy in a red hat. She shook her head, distracted by her own kids. Panic hit me hard. I rushed back through the line, eyes scanning everywhere for that red cap or his blue-stained mouth. My phone almost slipped from my sweaty hand. People pushed past me, some annoyed. One dad asked if I was okay. I gasped, lost my son, and kept going. That man took out his phone and said he would help look, but I barely heard him. I knew I needed help fast. I ran to the information booth near the fountain. A kind older woman in a sun visor listened carefully as I told her what happened. She pressed a button on her radio and called for security. They asked for Ethan's description, my name, my phone number, and what I was wearing. The woman gave me a bright orange wristband and told me to stay close in case Ethan came back. I nodded, but my legs wanted to run and keep searching. Two security guards in blue polos came. One man, one woman. The man walked with me toward the main area, and the woman headed toward the kids section. They said all exits were being watched, and they would alert patrols in the parking lot. The man asked if Ethan had a phone. I almost laughed. He was only 8. Then he asked if Ethan might be hiding as a joke. I shook my head. Ethan loved adventure, but he was scared of getting lost. We retraced every step I'd taken. Every minute felt like forever. I shouted Ethan's name over and over, ignoring the looks from people. I pushed through the crowds by the game stalls where workers waved prizes. The security guard gave updates on his radio. Still no sign. He tried to keep me calm, saying kids are usually found nearby. I wanted to believe that, but my thoughts kept going to the worst. I remembered Amber Alerts that used to flash on my phone late at night. I remembered reading about missing kids but never thinking it could happen to me. 10 minutes after we started looking, though it felt like an hour, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered it fast, hoping it was Ethan on someone else's phone. A rough voice said, "Sir, this is Officer Ramirez with the State Fair Police. Are you missing a boy in a red baseball cap?" My knees nearly gave out. I said yes and told him I was near the fountain. He said to go toward the south parking lot, row B, but stay with security. Officers were already there. He said someone saw a boy matching Ethan's description near a blue Honda CRV. I thanked him and ran, the security guy trying to keep up. The crowd felt like it would never end. I ran so hard I could hear my own breathing loud in my ears. My phone slipped again, and I shoved it deep into my pocket, not caring if it cracked. Row B came into sight beyond the ticket booths. 2 police cars were there with lights flashing. A group of people stood nearby. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out before reaching Ethan, but I made myself keep going. About 30 yards away, Ethan was standing stiffly next to a tall, blond man wearing sunglasses and a faded Carolina Hurricanes jersey. The man had one hand on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan's eyes were wide but dry. He looked stunned, not crying. I shouted his name as loud as I could. His head turned toward me. He tried to run, but the man's grip tightened. That one small pull was enough. 2 fair police officers ran in and pulled the man back. Ethan broke free and ran straight into my arms. I hugged him so tight he made a squeaky sound. He pushed his face into my shirt and finally began to cry. I felt each shake of his body. The huge weight in my chest started to lift, but I still held him tight. The blond man kept saying, "He's my son." "You're making a mistake," even while the officers handcuffed him. One officer checked his wallet for ID. The man said his name was Gary Thomas from Greensboro. He pointed at Ethan and said, "His name's Caleb. Ask him." But Ethan kept his face hidden and shook his head. A woman in a blue sundress stepped forward and told the officers she saw the man walking quickly with a boy who looked scared. She followed them because something seemed off. When she heard Ethan say, "I want my dad," she knew it wasn't just a family fight. She called 911. The police later told me that call came in at 1:49 p.m., just 12 minutes after I lost Ethan. Paramedics checked Ethan in the back of an ambulance. He was okay except for red marks on his upper arm where the man had grabbed him. They offered to take him to the hospital for a full checkup, but I just wanted to get him away from all the noise and flashing lights. After signing some papers and giving 2 statements, one to the Fair Police and one to Raleigh PD, I carried Ethan back to the car. Row B12 never looked so good. Inside it was hot and stuffy, but Ethan wouldn't let go of me. I started the engine and turned the AC on full blast. My phone showed 5% battery, but I managed to send my wife a message. "Ethan is safe, but was taken at the parking lot. Call me ASAP." Then I shut off the phone to save what little power was left in case the officers called again. We sat there in silence. I ran my fingers through Ethan's hair and kept saying, "You're safe now. I have you." Finally, Ethan whispered, "Dad." He said he saw my hat. The man told him I was looking for him at the car. He said, "Your dad asked me to walk you over since your phone died." Ethan didn't have a phone, but in that moment, he must have believed it. The man used that small confusion like a key. Ethan said that when they got near the lot, the man tried to pull him between two vans, away from the crowd. That's when Ethan yelled, and the woman noticed. I wanted to scream, hit something, but I didn't. I stayed calm and told Ethan he did nothing wrong. Strangers can lie. Even adults who smile can be dangerous. We talked about listening to his gut feelings. He nodded but kept staring at his knees. That look told me he felt guilty. So I told him how I lost him. 3 seconds looking at my phone. My fault, not his. I promised I'd never forget that feeling. I asked him to help me be better. He said yes. My wife got there about 30 minutes later, still in her hospital clothes, pale and scared. She hugged Ethan until he wriggled, then hugged me just as tight. The officers told us Gary Thomas had no connection to Ethan, no kids of his own. They found zip ties and a folded knife in his SUV. He was charged with trying to kidnap a child endangerment, and having a weapon on Fairgrounds. He gave no reason, just kept saying Ethan was his son. We drove home in silence. Ethan fell asleep against the window, dried tears on his face. My wife kept her hand on his ankle, like she needed to feel he was there. I drove, but everything felt blurry. I had never known that kind of fear, not in any movie, not in any nightmare. That night, we let Ethan sleep in our bed. Around 3 a.m., a thunderstorm rolled over Raleigh. Lightning made the room flash pale blue. Ethan mumbled and cuddled closer to me. My wife held my hand, and I made a silent promise. No phone, no distraction would ever come between me and my son again. Not in a crowd, not even at home. A week later, detectives called. They found out Thomas had been following carnivals across North Carolina for months. Security videos showed him wandering alone in kids' areas in Wilmington, Greensboro, and Fayetteville. He kept a notebook with messy drawings of rides and notes like most noise and easy exit. That scared me more than the day itself. Ethan wasn't picked by chance. Someone watched him, studied him, waited for the right moment. We signed Ethan up for a safety program for kids that taught him how to shout, run, and find someone in uniform if he got lost. I went to every class with him. At the fairgrounds, new speakers played safety messages every 15 minutes now, telling parents to write their phone numbers on wristbands. I felt thankful, but also sad that it took something so close to disaster to make that change. Time passed. Fall turned the leaves red. Winter brought cold nights, and spring brought the sound of birds again. Ethan didn't want to wear his Braves cap anymore, so we hung it on a hook near the door. Sometimes I touch it in the mornings. It reminds me of the carnival lot and how fast things can go wrong. I've thought of throwing it away, but I can't. It's a warning and a memory. Just 3 seconds can change everything. In July 2023, almost exactly 1 year later, Ethan surprised me at breakfast. He asked if we could go to the fairgrounds again. When the carnival returned, my stomach tightened just thinking about it. But when I looked at Ethan, there was something calm and strong in his eyes. He said he wanted to ride the dragon coaster again, this time to prove that the bad man didn't win. I didn't respond right away. My wife gently touched my arm and nodded. So, we went. I brought a charger pack, my phone hung around my neck, and I gave Ethan a bright green wristband with my number written on it twice. He wore a new cap, UNCC blue, and I made sure I never lost sight of him. We rode the dragon together. When it made the little drop, he threw up his hands and laughed loud. I laughed with him, But deep inside, I held tight to the memory of that burning hot Saturday in 2022. I would carry that memory forever, like a scar you can't see but always feel. Before we get into the next story, if this is your first time on our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss our upcoming scary stories. Your support really means everything to us, so please share these stories with your family and friends. Thanks. Last summer, Saturday, August 12th, 2023, I drove about 40 miles from my apartment in Buffalo to spend the evening at the Erie County Fair in Hamburg, New York. I was 25, single, and spending too many hours at a small insurance office. The fair seemed like the best place to relax, enjoy some fried food, and forget about all the stress from work for a little while. I arrived at the fair around 5 o'clock in the evening. The sun was still shining bright, and the weather was close to 80 degrees. Country music played softly from the grandstand speakers. The air was filled with the smell of kettle corn and diesel fuel. I paid $12 at Gate 5, got a faded orange wristband, and stepped onto the crowded midway, full of families and couples walking around. The first place I went to was the cotton candy stand on the north side of the midway, the one with the spinning pink sign that said Jim's Sweet Treats. While I waited in line, a clown walked up from the left side and stopped near the corner of the booth. His costume looked old-fashioned, a big baggy yellow suit with red polka dots, huge blue shoes, and a plastic half mask with a wide smile painted on it. Under one eye was a single blue teardrop drawn on. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at the cotton candy spinning, and tilted his head like he was listening to music only he could hear. The lady running the stand handed me a fluffy pink cloud the size of a basketball. When I turned to leave, the clown's head turned sharply toward me. Our eyes met, or at least I looked into the mask's eye holes. I gave him a polite nod. He raised one gloved hand and gave a slow finger wave, then stepped aside to let me pass. I figured it was just part of the fair. Clowns were supposed to be everywhere, right? Still, something about him felt strange. His costume looked worn and kind of dirty. The mask had tiny cracks around the mouth. When you grow up seeing clean and shiny mascots at sports games, a cracked old mask gives you an odd feeling you can't quite explain. I walked around for the next hour, wandering between game booths. I tried to win a plush penguin at the ring toss, but failed badly. I laughed about it with a teenage girl next to me, then made my way to the fun house with the glass maze. The entrance was under a glowing neon clown face. I showed my wristband and climbed the painted wooden steps. Inside, colorful lights bounced in mirrors all around me. Laughter and carnival music echoed through the narrow halls. I walked slowly, trying not to run into the mirrors. Halfway through, I turned a corner and jumped. The same clown stood about 10 feet ahead, one hand on his hip, the other hand pointing toward the exit sign like he was showing me the way out. Up close, the mask looked even older than I thought, maybe from the 1980s. I mumbled, "Thanks," though my heart was racing, and I squeezed by him carefully. He didn't move at all. Outside, the sky was turning purple as the sun set behind the fairgrounds. I tried to laugh off my nerves, blaming all the crime shows I had been listening to. I checked the time on my phone. It was 7:20 p.m. Fireworks were scheduled for 9 p.m., so I still had time for dinner. I walked over to the food row behind the grandstand and ordered a long corn dog and a fresh lemonade. While I waited for my food, a little kid tugged on my shirt and whispered, "That clown is behind you." I quickly turned around, and there he was, the same clown in the yellow suit, leaning on a garbage can about 20 feet away, staring straight at me. People moved between us, but he didn't look at any of them, just me. A wave of uneasiness was joined by a bit of annoyance. Maybe he thought he recognized me. Maybe I looked like someone he knew. It's possible he was one of the fair performers hired to mess with guests. I decided to test it. I held up my phone like I was going to take a selfie, aiming the camera to catch him in the background. The moment I did, he lifted a finger to the mouth area of his mask and slowly shook his head no. I lowered the phone. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I ate my corn dog, then rode the big Ferris wheel to calm my nerves. I bought a $20 souvenir t-shirt just to feel better. By 8:45, I decided to leave early before the fireworks caused a traffic jam. I walked toward Gate 2, sipping the last of my lemonade. Just past the exit, Route 62 runs along the edge of the fairgrounds. Cars were still moving along steadily. I was about 50 feet from the crosswalk when I looked to the left and froze. The clown stood on the sidewalk across the street, arms at his sides, head tilted again. The streetlights cast a yellow glow on his spotted suit. Behind him was a closed pet store. He didn't wave this time. He didn't move at all. A wave of fear swept over me, stronger than before. Out here, outside the fair, he had no reason to still be dressed like that. My heart raced. I turned back to the gate and almost bumped into a security volunteer in a lime green vest. I said I forgot something inside and rushed back in. I slipped behind some portable toilets where it was quiet, and the sound of the fair was muffled. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. I called 911. I gave the dispatcher my name, my location, and told her what had been happening. I said the clown hadn't spoken, but he kept following me, and I felt scared. She said a sheriff's car was nearby and would meet me at Gate 2. I thanked her and peeked around the toilets. I couldn't see the street because of the fence, but I could still see cars passing beyond the booths. 2 minutes later, a white cargo van slowly pulled up near the fair's entrance and stopped. It had no headlights on. My stomach dropped. The passenger door opened, and the clown climbed in slowly, not in a rush at all. The door closed, the brake lights blinked, and the van drove north, disappearing behind the vendor trailers. The sheriff's car got there about 3 minutes later. Too late. I waved it down and told the officer everything. His name was Deputy Harris, early 30s, calm, with sharp blue eyes. He took some notes, then walked with me around the outside of the fairgrounds, using his flashlight to check between trucks and behind tables. We looked for about 20 minutes. No van, no clown, nothing. Harris used his radio to alert other units, but no one matching the clown's look had been reported. He said that some traveling carnivals hire performers without background checks, which can be dangerous. He wrote up an incident report and offered to follow me to my car in the overflow lot. The way there passed behind the livestock barns, where it was quiet and dark, with only a few scattered lights. Harris followed in his patrol car as I walked. When I got to my Civic and unlocked it, he asked if I lived alone. I nodded. He suggested I have someone stay with me, or at least leave my porch lights on. Then he followed me partway down the highway until we hit the thruway. I got back to my apartment in North Buffalo a little after 11 o'clock. I parked under the only working lamp in the lot, rushed up the metal stairs and double-locked my door. Inside, I made chamomile tea, even though I didn't want it. I turned on every light in the place and sat on the couch, scrolling through local news, hoping to find something, anything, about the clown or the van. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "See you at the next show." No name, just that. My mouth went dry. I blocked the number right away, grabbed my kitchen scissors, and went to the bathroom. I turned on the faucet so I couldn't hear anything from the hallway and sat on the floor, back against the tub, trying to stay calm. My thoughts kept repeating all the moments: the mirrors, the garbage can, the strange wave. A clown's smile is always frozen, but this one felt like it was meant just for me. Like it was part of a private joke I wasn't in on. Around 1 a.m., headlights lit up the wall of my bedroom. I crawled to the window and peeked through the blinds. A white cargo van sat at the far end of the lot, engine humming quietly. The driver's side door opened and someone stepped out. I couldn't see a costume, but the figure had wide shoulders and a slim waist, just like the clown. He walked to the back of the van, opened both rear doors, reached inside for a minute, then shut them again. He got back in, backed out, and drove off with no headlights. The van had no license plate on the back, just two holes where it should have been. I called 911 again. This time, Buffalo police sent someone to check the area. They didn't find the van. The officer told me I should stay with someone for a few days. My parents lived in Rochester, about 70 miles away. They worked early shifts, and I didn't want to wake them. But fear beat out pride. I packed a backpack with my laptop and two changes of clothes. Before leaving, I checked my mailbox just in case. Sitting inside was a glossy flyer for a carnival, the Lake Ontario Traveling Fun Fair. Opening night was August 18th in Rochester, New York. The clown on the flyer wore a yellow suit with red polka dots and a cracked smile. My hands shook so badly that I dropped the paper. I spent the rest of that night and the whole weekend at my parents' house. On Monday morning, I called the Erie County Sheriff's Office to check in. Deputy Harris said that no one else had reported seeing the clown or being followed, but they had added more patrols for the fair's final weekend. He asked if I could come by and look through photos of known offenders who had worked at carnivals. I said yes. The photo books were thick, pages filled with faces of men and women in clown makeup, without makeup, with beards and tattoos. After an hour of flipping through them, I came across a face that made my chest tighten. His name was Kenneth "Kenny" Polinsky, age 47, arrested in 2016 for holding a child against their will at a fair in Pennsylvania. The note said he made a plea deal for assault, served 18 months, and had been moving from state to state since he got out. Listed under his known clown names was Giggles the Clown. Deputy Harris wrote down the name and thanked me, but they never found Polinsky or the white van. When I called again in October, the detective told me there were no leads. The Lake Ontario Traveling Fun Fair finished its time in Rochester without any problems, but I didn't go anywhere near it. I still check police news for stories about clowns, white vans, or missing people at fairs. Sometimes I dream about those mirrored hallways and the clown putting a finger to painted lips, telling me to stay quiet. I carry pepper spray in my purse now. I park under streetlights, memorize license plates, and never trust a costumed stranger at big events. People call me paranoid. I call it being careful. Because on a summer night in 2023, a clown walked out of my worst dream and into my real life. And he's still out there, waiting for his next chance. When I was 13, the Erie County Fair in Hamburg, New York, felt like the biggest place I'd ever been. It was Sunday night, August 20th, 2017, the second to last night of the fair, and the sky over the grandstands was painted pink as the sun set. My stepdad dropped me and three of my friends off near Gate 5 and reminded us again to stick together and meet him at the Ferris wheel at 9 o'clock. I tucked my old flip phone into my pocket and tried to act confident, even though I'd never been in such a big crowd without adults before. We were just suburban kids from Buffalo, and this fair was our big summer outing. The midway buzzed with sounds from the rides and classic rock music. The air smelled like popcorn, diesel from the rides, cow manure from the barns, and something sweet frying nearby. My best friend Marcus was 12 but already taller than me. His cousin Jalen and my neighbor Lily walked beside us, eyes wide. We won a cheap stuffed basketball at one of the milk bottle games, walked over the gravel to the kids' area, and spent too much of our money on lemonade refills. None of us noticed the small problem starting nearby. It happened close to a food stand called Burt Widener's Chicken and Steak BBQ, which sat on the edge of the kids' section. It was a short white trailer with red stripes and a menu painted by hand. A broken extension cord under the counter sparked and caught fire on a greasy cardboard box. At first, it was just a small flame, not wider than a finger. The workers later said they heard a soft pop and saw sparks. The fire climbed up the side panel, which was slick with cooking oil. It turned orange, then blue and reached the propane line. Someone shouted for a fire extinguisher, while another person tried to shut off the gas, but it was too late. The funnel cake stand next to it started glowing red from the light of the fire. The fair's loudspeakers crackled on, but the warning came too late. A rush of heat blew across the front of the booth, sending up a cloud of black smoke. People at the counter ran in panic, knocking over strollers and spilling drinks. I was drinking a snow cone when the first wave of the crowd ran into us. Someone screamed, "Fire! Run!" and the crowd shifted like a wave turning direction. I lost my balance and grabbed Lily's backpack, but the strap slipped from my hand as she got pulled away toward the kids' rides. Panic spread faster than the fire. Parents grabbed their little kids. Teen groups stayed close together. People pushed in all directions. Smoke climbed above the spinning lights of the tilt-a-whirl, making everything look like a haunted theme park. I felt Marcus's elbow beside me, but lost him when someone shoved me sideways. Jalen tripped and nearly lost his shoe. I helped him up and shouted Lily's name, but the crowd was too loud for him to hear me. Fair workers tried to push through the chaos, waving bright batons, but there were too many people. The best way out was the main walkway, but that's where everyone was heading. Lily, being smaller than most grown-ups, squeezed between a popcorn cart and the white fence around the kids' section. I saw her climb up a short wall and run along a service path behind the dragon-shaped roller coaster. The path ended at a big chain-link gate, about 8 feet tall and locked shut, because the area behind it was under repair. I ran after her, dragging Jalen, who was limping from a twisted ankle. But right at the entrance to the path, an older security guard stood trying to stop people from getting through. I ducked under his arm before he could stop me, but Jalen wasn't fast enough and got pulled back. The guard pushed him toward the middle of the fair. I shouted that my friend was ahead of me, but the guard's radio crackled with orders, and he didn't answer. I had a few seconds to choose. Chase after Lily or stay with Jalen? I chose Lily. Past the fence, the noise of the crowd faded a little. Bright lights reflected off the steel of the roller coaster, making long shadows on the cracked pavement. I ran as fast as I could, coughing from the smoke, until I saw Lily banging on the locked gate. Behind it was a narrow alley between trailers, a shortcut to the parking lot. Her fear had led her deeper into the fair instead of out. I tried the lock, but it was old and rusted. I shook the chain. Lily's face was covered in soot and her eyes looked panicked. Behind us, the lights at the fair flickered as the power system struggled. More flames burst from the food booth's roof. We heard a loud pop like a balloon as a propane tank released gas. Firefighters hadn't arrived yet. I looked around for something to break the chain. About 20 yards down the alley was a small maintenance shed, really just a big metal container. Its door was hanging open. I ran inside, knocking over a bucket full of metal parts, searching for anything useful. My hands found a big pair of bolt cutters like the kind the janitor used to cut bike locks. They felt like they weighed half as much as I did. I carried them back, set the jaws on the chain, and pushed. Nothing. I moved my knees, took a deep breath, and pushed down again with all my weight. This time, one link groaned and snapped. The chain fell and the gate opened. Lily ran through it, but we weren't alone in the alley. 2 young men, probably college age, were already there, arguing about whether they should climb the fence at the back to get to the parking lot. They froze when they saw us run in. One of them cursed and said we'd get them arrested. The other one said to calm down and help. He quickly lifted Lily over the back fence, then turned to offer me help. But I stopped. I could see that the path back to the fair was clear now. Firefighters were finally putting out the flames. Somewhere in the crowd were Marcus and Jalen, maybe looking for me, maybe hurt. I told Lily to stay put, safe on the other side of the fence, and then I ran back the way I came. Smoke still hung in the air, making everything smell burnt and sticky sweet. Sirens from the local fire teams wailed from the road around the fair. A loudspeaker told people to leave the fair calmly, but that was easier said than done. Vendors rolled away propane tanks. Ride workers stopped rides halfway through. Lights flickered on and off. I traced my way back to the kids' area and almost walked right into the same security guard from earlier. This time, he was standing behind a yellow plastic barrier, helping people get out. I shouted that my friend was hurt near the funnel cake stand. That wasn't a complete lie. Jalen's ankle was really bad, and the guard finally let me through. Marcus showed up first, standing on top of a picnic table and looking around at all the people. His shirt and neck were covered in powdered sugar, probably from someone's dropped funnel cake, but his face relaxed the moment he spotted me. He had lost his phone during the chaos and thought I'd been crushed in the crowd. We walked past a popcorn stand and found Jalen sitting on top of a cooler. He was pale, ankle swollen inside a fair-themed sock. Two paramedics in bright vests were kneeling next to him, wrapping his ankle with a bandage. I told them Lily was safe by the fence in the back, but I was still shaky. One of the medics talked into his radio, updating their team. Another gave me a paper face mask because the smoke still hung in the air. What was only a few minutes felt like it went on for hours. Eventually, the fire went out, leaving the booth burned, but still standing. According to the news later, no animals or guests were seriously hurt. The petting zoo goats had been moved out early. Still, at least 7 people had small burns, and a lot more were treated for breathing issues or getting squished in the rush. The fair emptied everyone out except for emergency crews and workers. My stepdad found us near a closed ring toss stand. His eyes were wide with worry. Lily was wrapped in his jacket, her cheeks red and streaked with tears. She kept whispering that she thought the whole fair was going to blow up. We waited for about an hour in the warm, smoky night while officers took statements from people. I told one of them about the broken chain, expecting to get scolded, but he just nodded, saying it probably helped people get out. The 2 guys who helped Lily had already left. Fire officials taped off the BBQ stand and shined their flashlights into the blackened wires. A reporter waved a microphone in the faces of tired families. A drone with blinking red lights hovered overhead, recording everything for the 10 o'clock news. Every ride had stopped, and without their music, the whole fairground looked empty and eerie under the moonlight. When we got home after midnight, our parents ordered pizza. None of us wanted to sleep. We sat on the living room floor, not saying much, just watching TV news play cell phone videos on repeat. Orange flames, loud screaming, and shaky footage of people running. Every few minutes, Lily would flinch, and Marcus would gently put an arm around her. Jalen's ankle was now up on 2 pillows, swollen and purple like a bruise. It hit me how just 14 hours earlier, all we cared about was winning another silly prize. The fair's music had been replaced in my memory by sirens and yelling. In the days that followed, local radio shows and news programs argued about safety rules and whether propane should be allowed near kids' rides. The fair reopened 3 days later with tighter rules, but none of us wanted to go back that summer. When school started, our teachers asked us to write an essay called What I Did This Summer. Most kids wrote about going to the beach or playing new video games. I wrote about smoke that smelled like burnt plastic, a chain snapping, and how fast fun can turn into fear. My English teacher circled the last line, I never felt smaller in a place built for fun, and wrote in the margin, Vivid, are you okay? It's now been 8 years since that night. I still live in Western New York, and every August, fair posters start showing up on telephone poles. My friends laugh at me for never wanting to go, but I can't handle the smell of grilled meat near dusty fair rides. One night, I drove past the fairgrounds in Hamburg after they'd closed. The Ferris wheel lights were off, but I could see workers' headlamps bobbing around like fireflies while they cleaned up. For a second, I saw Lily's scared face behind that locked gate all over again. My hands tightened around the steering wheel until the image faded behind me in the rearview mirror, like a bad dream disappearing with the sunrise. People think a stampede is just one loud noise, a big roar, and then it's done. But the real fear comes from 1,000 little sounds. Shoes scraping the ground, metal clanging, parents shouting their kids' names into smoke that swallows the sound. Those noises stay with you. I still hear them when a store alarm rings too long or when sparklers pop and hiss on the 4th of July. I don't freeze, but my heart remembers. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't found those bolt cutters. Maybe security would have gotten there in time. Maybe not. But sometimes life gives you one small choice: run away or run toward. And what happens after that depends on that moment. I was 13, scared, but I ran toward the problem. The gate opened. My friend got out safe. That should be a good enough ending to the memory. But fire leaves behind shadows, even after it's out. They flicker on the edge of quiet nights, reminding me how close fun and danger can really be.